Hey, I hope everybody's having a good Tuesday. We're going to do a little review of volume and not start anything new today. We'll continue with our study of surface area when you guys come back on Wednesday. So just as a review, last week we began the study of volume, and it was similar to area. We had length times width. The thing that we added in, because we went from a flat 2D shape to a three-dimensional shape. So we had three different values that we were talking about. We had length, width, and height. So we said in order to find our volume, we would take the length times the width times the height. So I just plug the values in. Length is 12 times my width, which in this case is 4, times the height, which is 3. And again, we talked about we can multiply because of that commutative property in any order here. So I could take 12 times 4 and then multiply my answer times 3. I could take 4 times 3 and then multiply my answer by 12. No matter which way I multiply, I'm going to get a final answer of 144. It doesn't tell us what we're measuring in. I'm going to say inches. And remember, since we're talking about three values, this would be inches cubed, right? So this is where we started with volume last Thursday, and then we moved on to when our shape was missing one of the values. So we knew we needed three different things: the length, the width, the height. But in this case, it left off the height and told us what our total volume is. So again, we substituted in. We know my volume is going to be 132. My length was 11. My width, so multiply that by 2. And then my height is my missing variable, the h. So again, on Friday, we discussed, go ahead and combine what you do know. Go ahead and multiply. So you get 22 times h, or just 22h, equals 132. Very similar to Module 6, solving for the missing variable. This is a multiplication equation. So to solve for multiplication equation, we have to divide. Divide both sides by the same number. Now I've accomplished my goal of h is now isolated and by itself. 132 divided by 22. Again, if that's not a fact, you can list your factors out. You do have a calculator available to you on your Chromebook that you are welcome to use, but 132 divided by 22 is just 6. So the height would be 6 feet. To get back to the volume, I would take 6 times 2 times 11, and that would get me to my volume of 132 feet cubed. Right? So this is what we reviewed a little bit of on Thursday, and then on Friday, you completed your assignment on volume. You are going to complete a standards mastery check, but there's one more thing that I want to add that some of you have gotten knowledge of as you have been through your volume lesson on iReady, but I want to make sure I touch on it for those of you that have not. So using this same equation, I'm going to look at another box here. So remember when I looked at my 3D shape, we talked about this shape had layers, and I could pull these layers apart. So when I look here, there is a bottom layer, there is a second layer, there is a third layer, there is a fourth layer, there is a fifth layer. So there are 5 layers to this particular box. That's just the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 layers. Now, when I look at this entire bottom layer that's here, I notice that there are 1, 2, 3, 4 blocks across the bottom, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 blocks up the side. So the bottom layer is a 4 by 8, which is 32 total blocks, which means if this is 32, then this is 32, and this is 32, and this is 32, and this is 32. I have 5 layers of 32. And if I take 32 times 5, I am going to get an answer of 160 cubes. Now, this does not have a volume of 160 cubes because some of you may notice, as I was counting blocks, 1, 2, 3, 4, there are only 2 feet across the bottom. And that's because of what this problem says. The model shows a rectangular prism packed with cubes that have a length of half of a foot. So what that means is I first have to find the volume of just one of these little cubes. So if I look at one of these little cubes, the length is a half, the height is a half, and its width, how far it's going back, is also going to be a half. So when I find the volume of this cube, this little cube, I take 1/2 times 1/2 times 1/2. So that is an 1/8. So each of these little cubes has a volume of 1/8. So if each of these is only worth an 1/8, I have to take 160, how many total cubes I have, and break it up into 8 pieces. Okay, because you told me each one of these cubes is worth 1/8 because it has a length of a foot, half of a foot, a width of half of a foot, a height of half of a foot. Since it is a cube, we know all 3 of those values are going to repeat. And 1/2 times 1/2 times 1/2 is an 8. So when I take this 160, my total number of cubes, divide it into 8 pieces, I'm going to find out that this particular blue total 3-dimensional rectangular prism has a volume of 20 feet squared. So another way to think about this is using our equation, because we can see these values that are along the side, and we know our equation is length times width times height. My length was 2 times the width of 4 times the height of 2.5. Well, 2 times 4 is 8. 8 times 2.5 would give me 20. So it is 20 feet squared. To get it the first time, I could use my layers, my blocks, but I had to be careful because I got 160 blocks in all, but that wasn't my total volume. That's how many cubes it took. But remember, each cube had a volume of 1/8. So I took my total cubes, divided it by that 8, and that got me my total volume. That's a different way to look at it when they give you each of these individual blocks instead of just giving you the 3D shape with your numbers. Okay? So you have 5 on your standards mastery check to go over. There are a couple like the first one we went over where you just use your equation, substitute the values in. There's a couple that are like the missing value, so it tells you your volume and you have to figure out the missing number. And there is one final question, number 5, that's a lot like this one here. So please make sure you use this information to help you. You're going to complete your standards mastery. And if you have yet to complete all of your extra math lessons, please make sure you work on those. And I will see you on Wednesday. Have a good rest of your day. And please email me if you have any questions.